Hi everyone, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to another video. Today I want to share with you how to make these really easy polymer clay earrings. These are going to be Valentine's Day inspired. So what I'm using today is the Sculpey clay. You can use the Primo, you can use different kinds, you could mix and match, just whatever you can find. I'm not going to be using too many colors today, but I am going to be using white, pink, and red. I've got the purple out. I didn't end up using that. I will leave all the supplies that I use linked down below. The best place I have found to order these online is Dick Blick. Amazon can be a little hard to find what you want exactly with your clay and the exact colors, and they can be a little pricey. So I'll leave the link down to the Dick Blick website in the description box. Something else you're going to need is something smooth to work on, whether that be a piece of acrylic. I am using a glass mat, or if you have a really nice flat surface already, that's great. But you're going to want to clean off your surface, make sure it's free of any lint. I'm using an alcohol spray here and just wiping it down with a lint-free cloth. You just want to make sure that you have as little lint as possible to get stuck in that clay. You also want to make sure you wash your hands and you take off any rings. Actually ended up breaking one of the prongs on my engagement ring while I was working with clay. So just let that be a lesson. Take off your jewelry. And then it's time to start kneading this and prepping it. Now, if you are a beginner to polymer clay, you're more than likely just going to be using your hands. If you have a pasta roller, great, use it. But I am new to this. I don't have that. I'm just going to use my hands here. You want to make sure that you warm up your clay a little bit, and then you're just going to start to squish it around, roll it around, and warm it up. You're making it pliable enough for you to work with. This takes a while, especially with your hands. So I like to just sit down with it. I've got my other pink in the back pocket of my jeans, so that is warming up while I am also doing this red. For later, I'll have the pink ready and warmed up a little bit. I'm also in a basement, so mine may take a little bit longer. It's colder down here, and we are in Iowa, where it's like -25 right now, which is great, and it makes the clay a little bit harder to work with. So this took around 10 to 12 minutes with my hand and really pressing it and kneading it and rolling it out. You're also going to need something to roll your clay with. Now, you can get acrylic rollers. You can find them on Amazon for pretty cheap. I don't have mine yet. So I'm just using a memento marker because I wanted to kind of get these made. Now, as you're working with your clay, you might notice that you get a few air bubbles. That's completely normal. To avoid that, fold the clay over and roll from the seam. But if you do end up getting a few air bubbles, just use either a needle. I'm using my craft pick just to pop those holes as I see them, and then continue rolling it out, kneading it, getting it ready to go, and conditioning the clay. You'll also notice as you're working with your clay that the color is going to get on your fingers. Again, that's normal if you're using a darker color like a red or a black or a blue, something with a lot of pigment in it. It's going to stain your hands a little bit. Just make sure whenever you are using a darker color and then you move to a lighter color, wash your hands. You want to make sure that you are continually washing your hands because that pigment will transfer over to a lighter color. Now, how do you know when your clay is conditioned enough? Well, if you stretch it out and it will kind of stretch with you and you can kind of twist it and move it and bend it and it doesn't break apart and it doesn't crack, then you know it's ready to go. But if you see that it still cracks a little bit or it's still kind of almost turning into a little bit of sand-like where you bend it, I don't even know how to explain it. It just kind of falls apart. It doesn't have that stretch and that pull. It just kind of crumbles when you pull it. Then it's not conditioned enough. You want to make sure it's nice and conditioned and easy to work with. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So once that is done, you're going to start cutting them out. Now again, you want to make sure that you roll this out on a lint-free surface. So I made sure that my surface was nice and clean, and then I'm just going to use my memento marker because that's what I have to use. Use whatever you have on hand. I'm going to just roll this out on my glass surface. My glass surface has a smooth side and it has a textured side where it has the grid marks. I'm making sure I'm working on that smooth side and rolling it out. I like to roll mine to about 1/8 of an inch. I don't want these super thick because clay can get heavy. These are earrings and it's going to weigh down your earlobe if they're too heavy, but I don't want them super thin to where they're just going to break. So you need to find that right balance, and I found about 1/8 of an inch works really well for me. So I'm going to continue to roll this out until it's about 1/8 of an inch, and I am treating it kind of like a pie dough almost. I'm flipping it back and forth from one side to the next. And once I have it where I want it, I'm going to flip it to the smooth side, and that was the last side that was touching my glass mat. And you can see I've got it about 1/8 of an inch thick all the way around. If you want to make sure that it's completely level on all sides, you can use some cardboard on both sides of your roller, and that will help you get a nice even surface. And then I'm going to start cutting out. Now, all of the little tools that I'm using to cut out, these mini little clay cutters, you can find on Amazon. I will leave it linked down below in the description box. They are all from the same pack. It's one pack of cutters. That's what I'm using today, keeping it really simple. So for my first pair of earrings, I'm just going to cut out a bunch of red hearts. Now these are going to be for some studs. They're also going to be for another pair. So I'm cutting out quite a few. Now, as I cut these out, I like to cut more than I need. It just makes life a lot easier. Sometimes you can end up with a piece of lint in it. Sometimes it can end up breaking as you're working with it. It's better to have more than you need than have to go back and redo this whole thing. So cut more than you need. Then to get these up, they do kind of stick once you've cut them. All you need to do is use a little spatula tool. So you can use anything you have on hand. This is a Cricut, it's for your Cricut to get up paper off your craft mat. Just a little spatula tool, a little scraper of some kind, and just peel those up, and I'm going to sit them off to the side until I have cut out all my pieces and I'm ready to bake. Now, another trick, if you like the look of a more rounded cutout, what you can do is take a piece of plastic wrap and place this over the clay and then go in and cut it. That is going to smooth out those edges and it's going to make it more round. Whatever shape you're cutting is going to end up with more rounded edges. It's a really neat look and it's really fun, especially on stud earrings. So I did cut a couple of those as well. And then again, using my scraper to just scrape that up and setting it off to the side until it is ready to be baked. And I know it can be a little bit hard to see, so here's a nice little close-up. You can see on the left, that's where I've used the plastic wrap, and then you can see where I have just cut it straight out, and that gives you more smooth, kind of just regular edges, whereas the plastic wrap just rounds out those shapes for you and gives you a nice little round look, which is especially nice for the studs that I'm making. Now I made some red hearts. I'm also going to make some pink hearts. I conditioned the clay the exact same way, rolling it out to the same thickness. Again, if you don't trust your judgment on the thickness, use a couple pieces of cardboard and just stack those up on either side of your roller. That's going to give you a guide to how thick your clay is, and your clay will be thick all the way across. I'm going to cut out quite a few pink hearts again. These are going to be for studs and also for another earring that I'm making. So I'll go ahead and cut quite a few of these as well. I did cut some directly with my little clay cutter, but I'm also going to do the same trick for a few of these, put my plastic wrap down and cut with that because I do love that rounded look. And then I'll use my spatula to just kind of peel all these up off and set them off to the side until it's time to bake them all. I like to cut out a bunch and then go and bake them. I don't like to just do a few pairs here and there and bake them off that way. If I'm going to be baking, I like to do kind of a whole sheet of them. I'm also doing the same thing with white with my hearts, which I did not show, but for now we're going to move on to the next one. For the next one, I'm going back to a different clay cutter. This is from that same pack, but this is more of a rectangle. If you do not have clay cutters, you can use just a knife, like a craft knife or a craft blade or anything like that. you can use to cut out. With this, it would simply be a rectangle. You can also use your die cuts, like if you have a heart die set, cut out one out of paper and use that as a template. And then you can use your craft knife to cut around it. Use what you have on hand. You don't have to buy a bunch of new things. The only thing you really need to make this work is the clay. And then you also need a few little earring findings that you're going to have to use to make these into earrings. So I cut out quite a few white rectangles from the white clay, and then I'm going to turn these into little envelopes. So to do that, I'm going to make little indentions. I'm not cutting all the way through the clay, but I am using a craft knife. This is more of a palette knife, and I'm using that just to make little indentions to make an envelope. So I'm coming in from both the top left and right corners right to the middle to make a triangle, a little point. And then I'll come in from the bottom on both the left and the right side, and I will just connect from the bottom to the line I made, not at the point, but about halfway from the point to the corner, and you'll see what I mean on close up. And this is going to make the little white rectangles look like envelopes. Very, very simple and easy to do. If you don't have a palette knife, use a credit card, use your scraper, you can use a toothpick, you can use whatever you have on hand. So once I have all those little envelopes kind of made, I'm going to make little hearts to put on the flap of them. Now I could cut these out, but I think that the heart cutout that I have is a little bit big, so I'm just going to make these by hand. I'm going to take a little bitty pinch of red clay and roll it into a teardrop shape. And I'm going to do that twice. Now, once I have two teardrop shapes, I'll go ahead and take both teardrop shapes, put them together to where the points of the teardrops, not the fat part, but the point, meet down to form a little bit of a triangle. Now, once I do that, I'll go ahead and smush them out. So here we go. I'm making the little raindrop shapes. Then I'll take the two little points and put them together on my glass mat. And then once I have them together, I'll smush it down with my finger, and that's going to create my heart shape. Now, if you do want to kind of manipulate these a little bit more, you can use your fingers, you can use a toothpick, you can use your craft pick, your little poker tool, whatever you have on hand just to manipulate those shapes. I'll zoom you in a little bit more so you can see what I mean by making these. I made two little raindrop shapes. I'll put those points together, and then I'll just take them and I'll smush down with my finger to kind of fuse them together and make a nice little heart shape. It's really as simple as that. Now this one didn't have the nice little indentation in the middle, so I just took a little tool and made it myself. Really, really simple and easy to do. And then because these do get a little bit stuck to my surface, I'll use my scraper to peel them up. And then I just place them on the envelope and give them a little smush down right where that flap is. And that's how you make the little heart and envelopes. Very, very simple and easy to do. Just takes a little bit of work and a little bit of heart making. Now, because I am making those hearts by hand, I like to make quite a few of them. And then because these are going to be pairs of earrings, I like to go ahead and try and decide which two look the most alike. And then I'll use those on a pair of earrings. So that way it's not one little tiny heart and one big one, or one kind of fat one and one long one. That I can kind of pick and choose which ones look very similar to each other. And then I just push them down onto the little flap right where that point is, and it's as simple as that. Now, once I had those done, again, I set them off to the side until it was time to bake, and I'm going to work on my next pair. For this next pair, I want to make the pink a little bit lighter here. So I am going to take and mix a few colors. I'm just going to take my pink and mix in some white, and that's going to make a lighter shade of pink. That is the great thing about clay. You can mix and match and do all different kinds of techniques with the colors. You can mix them to make a new color. You can lighten them by putting white in them. You can darken them by putting a complementary color in there, or a little bit of black or brown. It just depends on the color you're working with. As you're color mixing, it's probably a good idea to have a color wheel. You can look them up on Google and kind of get an idea of how mixing colors is going to work. Now for this, I do need to mix the pink and the white. It does take a little bit of work to mix the two colors together, and to check them to make sure they're fully mixed, I like to make it into a little bit of a rope and then roll it out. If I still see those striations of the white and the pink, I know it's not done fully mixing. Now that is a great look to have if you want to do a marbling look. You don't mix it all the way and that's going to give you a marbled effect. But I want these to be completely mixed, a completely solid pink color. So I'll just continue to mix until I'm happy with the color. Now for my next pair of earrings, we're going to make little knots. These are so cute and so easy to make. And again, you can play with the size of these and really have fun and make them your own. You can do these in any color you want. I'm doing them in pink today for Valentine's Day, but these look really cute in tans and browns as well, or even navies or brighter colors too. It's a really fun earring to make for every day. So I roll out my clay into a little snake, and then I like to cut off a section. This doesn't have to be perfect because we will end up cutting off a little bit more. You just want enough to work with to make your knot. Then you're simply going to tie it into a knot. That's all there is to it. You want to kind of finagle it until you get it very, very close to where there isn't really any you can't see between the layers or the knot itself. And then once you have that done, you want to go ahead and wrap the two ends around to the back. Then you want to cut off the ends to where they meet right on the back, and then just kind of smush them together. Now, as you're smushing them, it is good to put them on a flat surface and kind of smush them down. That is going to give you a place to apply your stud. So you always want to make sure as you're thinking about making your earrings, where am I going to glue that piece that's going to stick through my ear? Or where am I going to attach that piece that's going to stick to my ear? For these, you want that nice flat surface on the back where you can put some glue and you've got that nice flat surface to apply your stud. Now I rolled out my clay in two different sizes. I did a larger knot, which you can see up at the top, or you can roll these a little bit thinner, roll your snake a little bit thinner, and that is going to make a smaller knot. It all depends on what you like, what look you're going for. You can really play around with this and have some fun. The process is the same though. You tie it into a knot, you wrap your two ends to the back, and then you cut exactly where they meet and back. And then you just use your fingers, kind of smush those ends together, and then you're going to press down on a flat surface to kind of meld it all together and to also give your stud a place to be glued onto on the back. As you're making these and you're pushing them down to create that nice flat surface, sometimes you can lose a little bit of definition. If that happens, just take either your little palette knife or take any kind of little tool. You could even take your craft pick and just kind of differentiate those little lines there. It's really simple and easy to do. Now I have all my pieces ready to be baked. Now it is time to add the holes where I need them to add in my little earrings where I want them to be more of a dangly earring. So the trick here is to be gentle and not manipulate the clay too much to where it distorts it. I like to use my craft pick. It's nice and sharp. The hole that it makes is really the right size that I need it for my jump rings. So I like to just take my craft pick and push it through. As I'm pushing it through, I am rotating it, and that's going to create a nice little hole. If you find that you do maybe manipulate it a little bit too much and it distorts your clay, just use your fingers to try and press it back into shape. You can see that happened a little bit with my envelope. I just used my fingers to press it back into shape. It wasn't a big deal. Now, as you're doing this, you want to make sure that you make the hole all the way through the clay. I like to do this before I bake because I am able to do it with what I have on hand. If you want to bake and put your holes in after, you can do that, but you are going to need a Dremel tool. You can watch videos on that. I don't do that. I do mine before I bake. Now, I put my holes on my little envelopes because those are going to be dangly earrings. And then I'm also going to make a little bit of an ombre heart earring where I'm going to attach all these hearts together. So I've lined up the hearts exactly how they're going to be on the earring. And now I know where I need each one of the holes because I'm going to need one for the part that I need to hang into my earlobe. So I need one on the top of the white. I also need one on the bottom of the white and the top of the pink to attach those together. I need one on the bottom of the pink and the top of the red to attach those together so they can hang together. The only one that isn't getting one on the bottom is the red, and that is because it is the final piece. It's the last one that's hanging down. So that is the only holes I need on this. So on the white, top and bottom, pink, top and bottom, the red, just the top. And again, as I'm doing this, I make sure that I go all the way through and that the hole is all the way through that clay so I don't have to go back and fuss with this once it's baked because then I've got the problem of them crumbling. Now we're going to bake the clay. So to bake this, I like to put a piece of parchment paper down, and I am just using an 8x8 pan. This is a disposable one. I don't really love to use the pans that I cook with, so I just like to use a disposable pan. I put a piece of parchment paper down, and then I start layering in my earrings. Now these can be a little close together. You just don't want them touching. That is the main thing. Don't let them touch together. So as I'm laying these all on there, I also need to start thinking about how long these are going to need to bake. So you want to look at your package, and your package is going to have the oven temperature that it needs to be and how long each of these needs to bake for the thickness of the clay. That's why it's important to look at the thickness of the clay. So I know that mine is going to be at 275 for 25 minutes. Look at your clay package. If you have mixed clays, take the lowest temperature. Always go with the lowest one. You can always bake it longer. If it's burned, there's no going back. Then I take them up to the oven. I put them in a cold oven and then shut the door and start preheating. I know mine needs to be at 275. I preheat with them in there. This takes about 5 minutes for my oven to preheat. Once it's hit 275, then I set my timer for the 25 minutes. So I'll go ahead and click timer, 25 minutes, and then I start it. Now I let mine go for the 25 minutes and I keep an eye on it just in case anything happens. And then once my timer goes off, I turn off my oven and I let everything cool down in it. I'm not sure if you need to go through these steps, but on the clay things I've read it helps to preheat with them in there and also cool. It can kind of help with the integrity of the clay. So I've read. Now, once they are cooled, then it's time to start putting everything together. Mine's been a couple of days just because I ran out of time. So I have let them sit for a couple of days and now it's time to start putting everything together. Now for my studs, I'm going to use these little silver studs. You can use gold, you can use whatever you have on hand. And then I'm going to use E6000 to glue these to the studs. I've also used super glue. It works just fine for me. It was the Gorilla Glue. And I would suggest the gel just so you don't have a ton of like liquid everywhere. So I like to take my E6000 and put just a little dab. You do not need a ton of this on there. Literally just a little dab. I kind of roll it in a little circle because this glue can get a little stringy. And so that kind of breaks that bond. It's kind of like hot glue with the strings, but it's a liquid glue, if that makes any sense. And then I just go ahead and apply that stud and set it off to the side and let it dry. It's really that simple. So I'm doing that with a pair of red hearts, a pair of pink hearts, and a pair of white hearts. So I'll have all those different studs to choose from as we kind of come up through Valentine's Day. These are really fun to wear to like a child's classroom party or just out and about with a little pink sweatshirt or whatever. Really, really fun. I love these. These are my favorite because they're so simple and easy to make. Now, the next ones are exactly the same thing. These are the little knots that we made. So you can choose between the larger ones or the smaller ones. I went with the smaller ones just because that's more me. And I went ahead, put a little bit of E6000 on the back, applied the little stud itself, and then set them aside to dry with the little stud facing up so it doesn't get warped or turned or anything. Again, don't need a ton of glue, just a little bit, and just be careful with the strings. It can get a little stringy. Then place the stud on and set it aside to dry. You do want to make sure these are nice and centered so it's not looking a little wonky in your ear. And there are the little studs. Again, these are fun to wear. I love these. I'm going to make these in a few more colors so I can have them for other things other than just Valentine's Day. Now we're going to move on to a little bit more intricacy ones. These are the little envelopes with the hearts. Now for these, you are going to need some sort of hanging earring. I'll have to leave what these are called down in the description box. I'm not exactly sure. And you're also going to need a few of these O-rings. Now I am using silver. Again, you can get these in gold. You can get these kind of in any color you want. I'm just more of a silver kind of girl. That's my color. So you want to go ahead and thread through one of the O-rings. And I'm using a pair of needle nose pliers to kind of push and pull those together. These are pretty easy to get apart. You really don't even need the pliers. It just makes it a little bit easier where your fingers might get in the way. And then once I've almost completely closed that, I'm going to go ahead and thread through one of the earring pieces itself. And that is going to give it a nice dangling effect, if you will. These are really fun too. Being a card maker, these are really fun to wear. It looks like a little piece of Happy Mail on your ear. What more could you want? So once I've got that on there, I'll go ahead and close that O-ring completely together, or jump ring, whatever you want to call it, completely together. And there it is. Super, super simple and easy. I love the way these turned out. These really make me happy. Again, if white and red aren't your thing, switch up the colors, have fun mixing colors. I've also done the envelopes with a little teeny tiny little bit of brown mixed in for more of an ivory look. That is a really cute look as well. You could do pink hearts, you could do purple hearts, you could do whatever you wanted, or make it a smiley face, make it whatever you want, make it a little flower. It really is just about having fun and playing around with the clay. Now, again, I'll zoom you in. We're just going to open up that jump ring so we can go ahead and take the end of it and thread it through that hole we made. This is why it's so important to make sure you put it all the way through the envelope so you can thread that jump ring all the way through and not have to force it through. Because when you start forcing things, that's when you're going to break it. Now I'm going to go ahead and thread on my little earring. Now these weren't exactly the way I wanted them positioned, so I just turned that little hoop on the bottom of it, and then I'll thread it on the O-ring and just close it up with my pliers or my fingers, whatever is easiest for you. Super, super simple and easy to do. So I did a couple pairs of these, and the only thing you want to make sure of is that you get that completely closed, because if you don't, your earring will fall apart while it's on your ear and then you'll lose your cute little charm. But there it is, super simple and easy. I absolutely adore these little earrings. All right, now these are going to be the most labor intensive earrings. And I did not mess them up. Mine just turned out a little different than I would have liked them to. So I am using O jump rings for this. However, because I am connecting two pieces of clay, what I really should have used was an oval jump ring. That is going to give me more room to connect these together, where I'm using two jump rings in between each one, like I'm using one on the red and one on the pink, and then connecting those jump rings. With the oval jump ring, you would only need one to connect the pink and the red. But there wasn't enough space to do that with the O ones. So they're a little bit wonky. So if you can, I would use oval jump rings for this. I still like the way they turned out. They turn a little bit as they dangle, and that's not exactly what I wanted. So learn from my mistake. So if you're using oval jump rings, you're only going to need 3 of them. If you use O, which is what I had on hand, you're going to need 6 of them, or 5 of them, excuse me. So you'll need 1 for each hole that you made. So I went ahead and put 1 through the top of the red and the bottom of the pink and then connected them together. Then I'm going through the top of the pink and the bottom of the white, and that is going to connect the white to these. Do you get what I'm saying? These are going to be a little bit twisty-turny, but if you like that, great. If not, go with the ovals. Then I am going to attach my final O-ring to the top of the white, and onto that, I will add my little earring. Again, I like to turn these just because it helps them kind of appear in my ear a little bit better, so they're not turned. So I just like to give that little ring on the bottom of the earring a little turn, and then I attach it, and there it is. These are super cute too, but again, you can use those O-rings or you can use the oval jump rings. I just wanted to give you that option and kind of learn from my mistake. Now again, I am doing these in an ombre look, so I am doing red, pink, and white, starting with the red on the bottom, pink in the middle, white on top. You can do these a number of different ways. You can do these with a number of different shapes. It really is up to you to just have fun with the layout of these. I'm just making mine Valentine's Day oriented. So again, I'm starting off with the red, attaching that jump ring to the hole that I made in the top of the red. Then I'll put a jump ring in the bottom of the pink and attach that to the jump ring that is on the top of the red. As you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're kind of lining them up properly and they are hanging the way you want them to, and you're not putting the back to a front, if that makes sense. Then once I have those connected, I'll go ahead and close up that jump ring with my pliers or with my fingers, whatever works for you. Make sure these are well connected. You're going to have a lot of different pieces going on here, so you want to make sure these are nice and connected so they don't fall apart on you. Then I'll take another jump ring, put it through the top of the pink, and then I will go ahead and close that up and then prepare my white one with a jump ring through the bottom of it, and that will connect to the top pink one. Then, once I get that threaded on there, I will make sure that I really close this up nice and secure. These can be a little bit finicky to work with because you are working with so many different pieces and it kind of just wants to get away from you. Just take your time. If it falls apart, put it back on, not a big deal. And then I just close it up. Sometimes it's easier to use my fingers. Sometimes it's easier to get those pliers in there. It really just depends on the situation. The main thing with this is just not to get frustrated. And if you do get frustrated, just walk away from it and come back in another time. Putting all of these together can be a little bit frustrating, especially for me. I am so new at this. So once I got that closed, it was time to go ahead and thread the top one into my white. And then I added the earring onto that one before I got it fully closed. And again, I used my pliers just to turn that bottom ring on the earring so these would hang right in my ear and they would hang with the front facing what people could see. And then I just closed up that jump ring and I've got my little earring ready to go. These again, super cute. If you want to use oval jump rings, then you're only going to need to do those 3, and that will help them lay a little bit better. If you want them to be more twisty-turny, use the O jump rings. It really is up to you. There you have a look at all of these. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, a little something different, and I hope you guys make your own. If you do, I'd love to see pictures. Don't forget, all the supplies I used today are listed down in the description box below. If you haven't subscribed, you can do that now. Happy crafting, everyone!